questions here. As you write your questions down, please lift them up and a member of the league will collect them and hand them to me. We need to stop the question period at approximately 10 to 9, or no later than 10 to 9. And that is in order to give our candidates time to do their closing remarks. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the question, and they will have if they will wish, a 30-second follow-up or rebuttal as well. So we're going to start off with the first question, and Mr. Babcok, you will be first, Mr. France second, Mr. Dougherty third. And the question is, what do you see as the biggest difference between yourself and your opponents? Mr. Babcok.
Well, I will take that question to mean politically, not personally. An assumption on my part. When we're looking at things from a political standpoint, I think what differentiates myself and the other two candidates is just, and I'm not denigrating, them individually. I'm just saying for myself, I have a deep passion for what we're going to do in Morristown and a deep passion for being very open and honest. I'm not tied to any organizations outside of Morristown. I don't have any obligations to anybody but my own good judgment and the people of Morristown. And that's how I wish to conduct myself going forward. So when I'm elected, you can trust that I am going to do the work of the people of Morristown without my own agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. France.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I would say the biggest difference between myself and my cohorts up here is that I am Morristown. I mean, I was born here. More than likely, I'm probably going to die here. I have a long legacy of history in this town. Like I said, I went to this school here. My father, Stephen R. France Jr., you might have heard of him. My father instilled in me just public service, doing things in Morristown. Also, my brother Victor has been in the volunteer fire department for 40 years. And my father, when he was a paid fireman, he got the Mayor's Medal twice for bravery in this town. And it's just a feeling I have for this town, loving the town and helping the people. And that's real. That's not going to go away.
Thank you. Mr. Dougherty.
I'd say the biggest difference is I have a record to run on, and my opponents don't. Now, saying that, what does that mean? It means unprecedented civic engagement by the town of Morristown, by the residents, open master plan process. We actually rented a storefront to allow people to come in and see and put their input and their questions and have their questions answered. Never before has that been done in Morristown. Real tax reduction. 3 years of tax reduction. Not just the same. From 1.035 to 0.17 to 1.0.16 to 1.013. Those are real numbers. You can't deny that. Factual. So when we talk about different things and what we bring to the table, I have a record of 4 years. Transparency, inclusion, and good development. We changed a better development from a worse development to a better development. And that's the key. The right planners in place with Jonathan Rose. It's about being open and transparent and working together as a community and not isolated. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody want to make a rebuttal or follow-up? Okay, we'll move on to the second question. And Mr. Dougherty will answer that one first, Mr. Babcok and Mr. France. And the question reads, how would you create more recreational opportunities for the youth?
If you're not aware, we have a new recreation director, Linda, for many, many years has retired. And with that comes a totally different energy, a totally different concept of how we're going to reach out to the community with new programs and different ideas. And there's so many different groups in town who are youth, their future. There's so many different youth groups that want to be involved. It's really just about communication. It's working with your council members in your neighborhoods, working with different recreational structured organizations, the ones that do youth football, youth basketball, soccer. It's finding different avenues for grants, for money to fund these programs. But I think the biggest investment we made was bringing in this young guy from Livingston as our recreation director. He's fantastic. He's savvy, technology savvy. He's got great ideas, and he's going to input totally new programs and much more geared towards the youth with the tennis and all different kinds of programs. So we're very excited about it. But with all that comes cost. So you want to be able to make sure you partner with neighborhood housing and organizations to bring the best we can to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Babcock.
Well, I think this is a good subject to incorporate the discussion about shared services. One of the, if not the most effective ways to cut spending and thus, as a result, cut taxes is through the shared services process. And Morris Township is our most natural partner. And unfortunately, recently we had a shared service in Morris Township for animal control, which was severed. And that was because Morris Township and Morristown could not function together. Morris Township felt that from the Morristown side there was some deception and just unethical behavior. Now, when I'm elected, I have the relationships in Morris Township that will get shared services back on the table. And when we talk about recreation, it's a darn shame when kids go to school together that they have to end up splitting into different programs at the end of the day. So shared service is the most natural thing for recreation for Morristown and incorporating that into Morris Township. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. France.
Yes, thank you for the question. This is an easy question for me to answer because I have over 40 years working with kids as far as coaching. Most of those years I didn't get paid. And I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of untapped talent in this town. If I'm the mayor, what I would do is I would start every month the Mayor's Advisory Committee. And one of their committees would be about recreation. I would seek out volunteers that would want to give to this town. We can set up programs. We have the fields, we have everything here. We don't have to spend money. All you got to do, there's so many new young people that move to this town that would want to get involved. And I would invite everybody to do that. And look forward to it. Thank you.
Yes, 30 seconds, and you'll only see a red card go up after 30 seconds.
The question of shared services is easy to just throw out there, but you have to really study and you have to make sure it's financially feasible for both municipalities and it's national tax savings. Just to throw the word out there doesn't mean it works. Second thing is that Mr. Babcok realized that the Morris Township and Morristown kids are affiliated in many sports activities together. They're not isolated, not in any way, shape, or form. And when you throw out things of animal stuff, you should really know your facts. Morris Township didn't pay its bill. Okay, so get the facts first.
Very quickly.
30 seconds.
I have it on first-hand knowledge from Morris Township that they were challenging bills because they were not, the bills that were presented to them were not detailed as per the agreement. And so there was a disagreement, there was a request for more detailed information, and that is where the friction and then the fall down of the agreement came about.
Can I go quickly, Bob? Yeah. The thing about shared services, folks, if you really pay attention with the property taxes we pay and a lot of people pay in New Jersey, the wave of the future is going to be shared services. Mayoral and Warden are sharing the police department. If you read New Jersey Monthly Magazine, I think it was the August edition, they did a story where Princeton and Princeton Township have merged. It's going to more and more and more make sense because it saves money and it just makes sense.
Thank you. The next question, talking about young people, there's a lot of young people relocating to Morristown from places such as Hoboken and Jersey City. What plans for redevelopment do you have to maintain the influx and meet the needs for growth? And Mr. Babcock will go first, Mr. Dougherty second, Mr. France third.
It's a wonderful thing that people want to come to Morristown. When it comes to the future of Morristown's development, though, I think we need to first focus on the people who live here and the quality of life of the people that live here and perhaps have lived here for generations. I don't want to plan necessarily necessarily, this is where the mayor and I differ very strongly, is I don't foresee high-rise apartments on every available piece of land throughout Morristown. I think our planning for the future is better served with a better balance of business development, because when we impinge our established neighborhoods with high-rise developments, we bring, and we'll get into this further, but it doesn't pay for itself when you have people coming into high-rise developments. They're using the schools, they're using all of the different services, as opposed to business, which ends up being a net bottom line positive for the tax base. So I'm looking for smarter growth, not necessarily higher growth.
Thank you. Mr. Dougherty, please hold your applause. There's no applause. Thank you.
Well, I can only say that Spiegel Avenue is the one that's under construction. We inherited that development from the previous administration. It was on the table for 10 years, and it's now in progress. And that's because it was planned right. We took mobility into consideration, pedestrian movement, better architecture, went from 6 stories to 4 stories on Early Street. So it's a better project. That's what we brought to the table. Now, as far as balanced development, yes, there's a lot of young people moving to Morristown. There's no doubt about it. It's a very popular town. It's growing, but you got to be careful how you do it. You have to plan. You have to make sure you take in pedestrian, movability, traffic. You have to take into what kind of development, what type of development. I can tell you one development that we're proud of is the 18 townhomes that were built on Mayoral. I don't see the high-rise there. I see 18 townhomes, very successful also. Also, work. You have to incorporate not just building apartments, but you have to create jobs. CVS is jobs. Whole Foods is jobs. These are real jobs and good companies that people can work for. So there's a balance between housing and jobs. So we'll continue to build, but remember, in every development, 12.5% affordable goes with it.
Thank you. Mr. France.
Yes, the mayor of Morristown is a very important position, primarily because that individual is in charge and is accountable for everybody in the town, not just the developers, not just the banks, not just the people who want to come in here to invest, but a lot of the people have been here for a long time. I'm a realtor, and a one-bedroom apartment right now is down in Beverly Gardens. It's $1,100 for a one-bedroom, $1,200 for another one-bedroom and a new kitchen. That's all that's available. There's no affordable housing in Morristown. The problem there is a lot of people in Morristown feel their days are numbered, that they don't have a future in Morristown. And I think the mayor of Morristown has to keep that in mind. I think any of these things we build have to have at least 20% inclusion of affordable housing for the people who live and work here and do service jobs. Very, very important.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe.
Well, it's on the books. The town council passed the ordinance 12.5%. If you want to go lobby the town council to raise it, I think that's fine and admirable. But it is 12.5%. And in the last 2 years, we've got the deeded rights to the affordable units at the hospital. The ones that are going to be built in the first phase, Morris Avenue, which is complete, and we're in negotiations for the second phase, and also the Scholars Project on Morris Avenue, which will all go 12.5% affordable.
Since we're on the subject of affordable housing, recently at my neighborhood association meeting, the mayor declared that one of his future policies will be to take foreclosed upon homes and convert them into affordable housing. Now, if he follows the state democratic plan, that would incorporate, that would open up the potential to incorporate those homes as halfway homes for sex offenders and drug addicts and ex-cons. Now, even if that weren't to be true, if you take an established neighborhood and you drop an affordable housing unit into the middle of it where it has never existed, that would be the impetus to decimate home values to everybody around it. And it's an unwise policy that cannot go forward.
Thank you. No, I'm sorry, but you have a chance because the next question happens to deal with what is your plan to bring more affordable housing to Morristown? But Mr. France gets the first response, Mr. Dougherty and Mr. Babcok. So you can expand on your plan to bring more affordable housing to Morristown.
Okay, great. Affordable housing. Well, affordable housing is a concept when you have high densely populated areas, you have different levels of income. So you have to have some affordable housing, otherwise you'll have to import all the service workers to an area. And New Jersey, the strength of New Jersey, a lot of people that come here, New Jersey is a very diverse state. It isn't a place where you have millionaires in one place, non-millionaires in another place. We live together, this is a together town, we don't discriminate on income. So I think the mayor has to be aware of every single person, every person in the soup kitchen, every person in Park Place, all these people. If the people in this town want affordable housing, and whoever's the mayor has to produce it, because that's his job.
Two quick things. I have no idea what my counterpart to the left is talking about when it comes to state democratic policy on housing. But let me say this. Morristown has passed the first fair housing share plan in Morristown's history. It's in the books. Second thing is, we have our spending plan in Trenton waiting for approval of $1 million to partner with nonprofits to build affordable housing. And I'll give you a quick example. Down by the high school, there's a 4-family homeless solution building. And there's a single mother in that apartment. And she feels like she lives in the neighborhood. And it's affordable housing built by Homeless Solutions. So I don't know where you come up with your state democratic policy as far as it's going to be sex offenders and drug addicts. That's just politics, talking, and shock value. It doesn't work here. It's local politics.
Excuse me, Mr. Babcok, before you start, I would please ask the audience to refrain from making comments while the candidates are giving their responses. Thank you. Mr. Babcok.
Well, the State Democratic Caucus in Trenton actually passed the bill, and it wasn't until the governor vetoed it. This has been a part of the Democratic Party of New Jersey's agenda for several years. Now, moving forward, I've already said that I think that is a big mistake. Now, for my own policies, I very much support incorporating 12.5 or more into all new developments, and where appropriate, I think affordable housing is not only a necessity, but it's a moral imperative. Morristown is a town of neighborhoods, a town of families, and we want to continue that tradition. We don't want people to be priced out of Morristown when they have built their lives here and their children were raised here, etc. So going forward, I certainly encourage all development, meet or exceed those affordable housing numbers, but I don't support having our neighborhoods challenged where it's not appropriate.
Thank you.
Yeah, one quick thing. Up here on Early Street, they're going to be putting in many hundreds of units, and they're not going to be affordable. If I'm elected the mayor, I'm going to, like I said, I have a mayor advisory committee meeting once a month, and when people come to me and they want to see more affordable housing, at this point, I would commit to a 20% ratio of anything new built has to be affordable. That's where I stand on it, because I know it's needed. I was talking to a guy today on Early Street. He told me, he said they're pushing all the poor people out of Morristown. And this guy is not poor. He just feels that he's poor because of what he sees going on.
Just a quick statement. There are, again, this is about a year ago, the head of DCA came to Morristown and I had breakfast with him. One of the things he said to me was, it's very interesting, you don't have an obligation to build affordable housing that you guys are. And I said, we don't have an obligation, we have a moral obligation. We firmly believe in affordable housing, we stand strong with it. We inherited that first project, made it better, there's 10% of that first phase is going to be affordable, and 12.5% of each phase forward will be affordable. So we're comfortable with the fact that we understand as administration and planning that developers, if you try to make them build and try to get 30-40% affordable, they just won't build. So you have to take economics into it. It's a number of things. You just can't throw it out there.
The next question is for Mr. France, although the other candidates can feel free to respond if they so desire. Mr. France has asked, you're always talking about cutting taxes, reducing costs. Can you give some details about where you would cut and which programs or services you would cut?
Well, yeah.
It's like I said in the beginning, if Morristown is going to truly be the best run town in Morris County, we have to accept the fact that we have a major problem with property taxes. Cannot bury your head in the sand and pretend we don't have this problem. I'm a realtor. I show people houses, Morristown, Morris Plains, and Morris Township. They generally like the houses in Morristown, like walking in town, but when they want to make an offer, they don't want to buy the Morristown house because they say the taxes are 2 and 3 times what they are in Morristown. Morristown has high taxes because of many reasons. You have the hospital and the county don't pay anything. If I'm the mayor, I would go after them and make them pay something. We have to have somebody who's going to stand up, risk failure, forget about politics, and just get some things done for the residents of this town. Because a lot of people have paid their houses off. Their tax bill every month is much or more than a mortgage payment. And I feel it and I know that pain. When I'm the mayor, I'm going to put property tax freeze on them. And everything will be on the table. You're not going to lose services. We're going to move ahead to a better situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Babcock, would you wish to comment?
Just very briefly, while I'm encouraged by the sentiment of Mr. Francis' comment of freezing taxes, because that very much is in my heart at all times, and I'm sure the mayor feels the same, that it's easy to say I'm going to freeze the taxes, but it requires a lot of hard work, and you have to get very specific about actually how you would accomplish that, because there's always debt obligation, et cetera, which always is having a inflationary effect on spending. So you have to look elsewhere to see where you're going to actually achieve that cut. To me, shared services, and I am very well educated in the subject, is the future for how we will better control our taxes, our spending, and therefore have a positive effect on true tax reform in Morristown.
Thank you. Mr. Dougherty.
Yes. Well, as we said at the beginning, the difference between the 3 candidates is I have a record. We took office $4.2 million deficit. We had to lay off 10% of the workforce. Then we saved $700,000 by privatizing garbage. We then added another $600,000 to that through health insurance savings because no longer are we getting medical issues coming out of sanitation. So it's a twofold. It was $1.3 million. We also saved $250,000 a year by going online and buying 50% renewable energy. $250,000 a year. We also saved $250,000 by going into the county dispatch, like many other communities in the county is going. And Ed's right. The county pays no taxes. But one thing that I forgot to mention that we've been in litigation with the hospital for probably 8 years, if not longer, on that issue of taxes. And I believe, hopefully, we will win that argument in the end. But we are in litigation trying to get tax money from the hospital. Thank you.
Mr. Francis, about 30 seconds.
Quick rebuttal on that. There's a lot of ways we can save money in this town. When I'm the mayor, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to meet with each and every employee in this town. As we sit today, there are 2 pending lawsuits against the town of Morristown. One's for $2 million and one's for a sexual harassment suit. I'm going to make sure that the employees are heard and they're not going to be suing the town. We have to pay extra money for that. But the bottom line is, we have to accept reality. We have the highest property taxes. It's not fair to the homeowners. We've got to have equal time to that. Help them out. Thank you.
I also forgot to mention one thing. 3 years of tax savings. It's fact. 3 years. Negative on your taxes. Look at municipal taxes. It's down each year for the last 3 years. And finally, as far as lawsuits, I know some tort claims. I can't comment on lawsuits that are filed with the town. It's a democracy. Everybody has the right to file. But Ed, you should know, you filed a lawsuit when I first took office and was thrown out of court. That cost taxpayer dollars.
One thing that I'm very concerned about when we're talking about the recent tax rates is that we have had a recent influx of tax revenues from a from multiple sources from some of the new developments where many the condos, I should say, were sold in a very concentrated time frame, as well as the savings that were taken from the solar project and used in the general fund. So that offsets a lot of the spending that otherwise would have forced a tax increase. We have to look at the future where those will not be consistent incomes to look at what we're going to have in terms of inflationary tax pressures